Welcome, everybody. And let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I will start it. And your heart. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Director Robert,
Present.
Director McMillan is absent. Director Avila,
Hello, I am participating remotely. I'm a little bit under the weather. I don't want to be contagious towards anyone, and there is nobody in the room here with me.
He made his record.
all right.
Okay.
Director Waters,
Here.
Director Quady.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you, Director Avila, for not sharing. And we'll go on to the public comments. We have any public?
There's no public in the room and we do not see any raised hands online.
Okay, then onward to presentation.
I think we need to do consent.
To do what?
Oh, sorry, presentation. Yeah, there's no presentation tonight.
No
Sorry,
presentation.
thinking about other presentations.
Any items to be added to the agenda?
No items.
No items to be added. Okay, so on to the consent calendar. Any comment, dialogue from the director? I just have one on C1A. It should, February 2nd meeting was a aqua board. Remember, I'm an alternate to the vice chair, so I assume that.
So I'm sorry, you want to add it to that item?
Yeah, this said region 8 and it wasn't the region 8. It's they don't call it executive board, they call it the aqua board.
Got it. Okay, we will have that correction made. Thank you for the clarification.
Any others? Okay. Any other discussion? Item, this is a consent calendar, all for one.
I move the consent calendar. Second.
Motion's been first and seconded. Roll call vote.
Director Robert,
Yes.
Director McMillan,
Aye, and I'm acknowledging my presence.
Director Avila,
Aye.
Director Waters,
Aye.
Director Quady.
Aye. Consent calendar carries. Action items, none.
On tonight.
So on to reports. We'll go on to the strategic communications plan workshop. Ian.
If you needed just a couple minutes to set a couple things. So if you just bear with us for a moment. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. So I'm leaving the camera on, but turning the self view off, so you know. One other thing. Okay, yeah.
Is this letter up there?
Look yours up there, thanks. And then Director Avila, the other thing we're gonna do is I'm going to, we're setting up an easel in the room because Maya is gonna take notes of some of the stuff. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna join via my phone and have the phone directed at the easel. So hopefully you can see that as it's happening.
Sounds good. Thank you. If you can, I'll take notes myself as well, so you don't have to do that for me. Thank
Okay.
you.
We've got someone in the room taking notes and I think just.
Morning progress.
And can you promote me? Okay, can you see it? Zoom, Jim? We're doing okay. We hit our marks. Okay. All right, good to go. Good work, everyone. Thank you. Okay, so here we are, Strategic Communications Plan Workshop. Appreciate everyone being here, the opportunity to do this. It was difficult to schedule, so also appreciate the opportunity to commandeer a portion of your board meeting this evening. We are here to work on, get your feedback, the board's feedback on strategic communications. I made a presentation on the strategic plan implementation a few board meetings ago, and one of the slides in there was a quote from Dwight Eisenhower: "Plans are useless, but planning is everything." So what we're doing tonight is the planning, and not to say that our plan is going to be useless, but this kind of conversation is super important for us as staff to understand how the board sees their role, the organization's role in communicating out what our plans and our activities, what it is that Calleguas is doing. So that's what we're doing here tonight. We're going to take up about a little over 2 hours of your time as the plan. We're going to give you a break about halfway through. Really, this is take you through a series of brainstorming activities and discussions about the purpose of strategic communications, audience types. We're going to spend some time categorizing the people that we're talking to, the key messaging priorities, that is what we're trying to say to them, and then how we're going to say it. We're going to a conversation about communication tools. So that's like channels, meetings, social media, pace of that, those types of things. I'm not going to be talking to you the whole time. I will talk a little bit in the beginning, and then Charlotte Hollifield, our public information officer, is going to lead the discussion on audience types. Megan Schneider, who's our senior communication specialist, is going to lead the discussion on communication tools. We also have, for help this evening, Maya Holcomb, who's our management analyst, who's going to be scribing at the easel. Jennifer Lancaster, of course, a manager of water resources, who's going to be our poster logistics coordinator. Putting Post-its up on the wall. And then Jen Vasquez, who you guys met at her first meeting last month, is our new principal water resource specialist, is going to be taking notes for us. And of course, we had a lot of input from Christine over the last few weeks. And I also want to thank Director McMillan and Director Avila for their time in December at a public engagement, communications, and legislative affairs committee meeting. We got a lot of valuable feedback about what we're going to be talking about today. So first activity, want you to think in your minds, write down if you want, what the most recent news story you heard was. Whether you get Fox News, NPR, Twitter, however you get your news. What was the last news story you remember hearing? Director Quady.
I was just reading about the United Waters big large amount of water that they've been able to divert into injecting groundwater. And I really, literally, because I was a dye doctor, so I got to read all sorts.
Great. All right. Director Waters.
I think they're moving on to Trump impeachment.
Again?
Director McMillan.
No, I heard that the Culver City has traffic backup due to the president's presence.
And Director Robert.
I saw the same thing about the Trump impeachment. That's the last thing that came across the old news feed.
Okay, and Director Avila?
Right before I joined this meeting, an article about Arizona refusing to extradite murder suspect to New York because they're worried New York will just release him.
Right, well, thank you. Well, with the exception of President Quady, you guys proved the rule. Which was it local, positive, and proactive? Most people read and especially remember stories about things happening far away that are not good news and that they have zero control over. And that's because that's what sells papers and drives clicks, right? Crises, weather, famine, war, celebrity, gossip. But this is what we're competing against for people's attention, right? And the news stories, the stories that we are trying to tell are hyper local, obviously. We are telling positive stories about Calleguas and about what we're doing in the world. And we are trying to be proactive. But this is the environment, this negative and very noisy environment is what we're projecting our communications into. And so the question is, and why we're doing this whole exercise today, is how do we stand out, right? When everyone's so distracted and often by, very legitimate societal issues. It's not that anyone mentioned today is frivolous, right? But how do we command attention? So as we go through today, the workshop today, just keep these questions. These are some of the questions we'll be tackling. Why should we communicate? What you hope to gain as a board member representing Calleguas? What do you hope to gain by changing the way that we communicate? Because we wouldn't be going about this workshop and this plan if we just wanted to do everything the same way. More recognition, less, greater understanding, proving public trust. Who's our audience? What do we want to say to them? Today is really about generating ideas and giving us staff direction on the board's vision for communicating with the outside world. It's going to inform our writing of a strategic communications plan, which you guys will see and adopt. And individual campaigns, whether it's social media or the landscape has changed or any other ideas that are generated today or in the wake of this workshop, we'll bring back to the board at a later date for more granular attention. There's a lot of different reasons to do communications and to have a plan. One is to provide clarity and focus on communications goals and messages, to align efforts and to streamline processes. So we'll talk about who does what at what level of engagement. We're focusing on the board today, right? Again, what your interests are, what your best points of leverage might be, building relationships and trust by being prepared and proactively managing our presence and reputation, mitigating and navigating crises. So we have emergency protocols and an emergency operations plan. We've got someone who's a good portion of their job, Daniel Cohen, is dedicated to doing this under the HR risk management department. And this issue clearly calls for very high level communications, efficient and effective communications. And that may come up in the discussions today, and that's good. But just so everyone knows, we will keep in the final kind of plan, we'll reference our emergency operations plan, but we're not going to have things in two places. How can I mention that plan, reference that plan wholesale, then trying to recreate it in two places? And we'll get to several of these reasons up on the purpose for doing plan for communication and planning throughout the exercises today. But I want to just take a couple minutes and start at a kind of fundamental level, framing the strategic value of communication in terms of our new model for resilience, because that's where so much of our effort is heading, right? And this has been the big driver for adding the people we've added and doing the things that we're doing. So the last couple of years have been about disruption, right? Before that, of course, with COVID and everything else, but especially in terms of our strategic vision. The second year of drought, the emergency water conservation program for Metropolitan was really an inflection point for us. And since then, we've been in a constant state of fluctuation and adaptation. and pivoting both to water supply conditions that have not just improved, but have swung entirely the other way. So some organizational changes at Calleguas, at the staff level and at the board level. We have we got two new board members last year. And then some of our partners, right? There's obviously huge changes happening down in Metropolitan as well. So it's been 6 months since we adopted the strategic plan, and the outlines of some of the projects and programs that we may want to pursue are starting to become clear. It's going to be a long process, right? From defining and evaluating projects to developing the institutional frameworks that are going to make them happen. We are going to be engaging with different groups and from different levels of government in different ways than we really ever have before. So the Water Resources Implementation Strategy, or RIST, is where we're doing the work right now of developing and analyzing those projects and programs, infrastructure. It's the organizing process, kind of the vessel we're using right now to hold ideas about future interagency infrastructure and programmatic cooperation. If you're squinting, that stuff's supposed to be blurry. I didn't want.
Okay.
I guess I'm bad. It backfired, a little more distracted.
And go back to the.
So,
Battling with dilated eyes.
so none of the stuff that we want to do is going to happen without communication and community support. It perhaps may have, it's, used to. Part of the legacy of Calleguas is as a wholesaler, is operating one step removed from the constituencies that pay for our projects. We use development money to build infrastructure, to bring water to the places where developers needed it. When we first hooked up to Met, after Met first hooked up to the State Water Project, like everyone thought there was plenty of water to go around, right? They're like, it wasn't controversial, water wasn't an issue. I'm on the policy advisory committee for the Las Posas Basin Water Master, and I was talking to a guy who's been farming in his family's land for like the last 40 years. And he said when he took over the farm in the 80s, his idea of water resource management was pressing the start button on the well. Like no one thought about it. And that's not the case anymore, right? And the work since these fundamental initial projects at Calleguas, the ASR well field, the salinity management pipeline, the Las Virgenes interconnection. It's a very long list of super important projects. All of these really were adopted by the board based on the expertise and the well-earned reputation of our engineering staff. But essentially, money was there for the reliability and resilience projects that we needed to build. On the farming side, not necessarily our customers, but within our service area and the county as a whole, we depended on what water was available from the ground and sky and streams. Ag shares these supply sources with municipal and industrial users, some of whom are our customers, especially groundwater in the Calleguas service area, but also rivers and reservoirs in Santa Clara and Ventura River watersheds. Over the years in the Calleguas watershed, as cutbacks were necessary in pumping, especially in Oxnard, Pleasant Valley Basin, but also in Las Posas to some extent. Fox Canyon GMA policies primarily took what cutbacks needed to happen out of the M&I pie. And for the most part, we were able to do this, to accommodate this, because of changed residential and commercial water use behavior, right? Water use efficiency became and is and will continue to be a big deal. Generally speaking, we use less water for the same number of people. But we're running up against limits, right? One is the widespread understanding that we can't conserve our way out of this, right? Demand has hardened, and it's widely understood that it's not going to harden all that much more. We're seeing this across metropolitan service area, really across the Southwest. Water use efficiency will always be important, and we're going to continue to invest in it. But instead of only cutting back, the district has decided to go out and find more water. But there's constraints to doing that also. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act changed the game for farmers and other pumpers of groundwater. It's certainly impacting Calleguas as an organization. Growth limits and housing policy in Ventura County have also created additional limits, specifically on the availability of development money. Now, all told, we have less money for water that's harder and more expensive to get. But even that wouldn't be such a major issue if the reliability of all this source water was the same. Unfortunately, changing climates, both atmospheric climates and those of social, legal, and political kinds, are casting the reliability of our source waters into doubt also. Which is why, after decades of operating in like the relative obscurity of being a wholesale water agency, we're finally forcing ourselves to enter the public square. Because our remit, our circle of control, is no longer sufficient to make the decisions that we need to make in order to build the kinds of infrastructure we're thinking we're probably going to need to build. We need to have social community support. And how we do that, again, is what we're talking about today. There's an infinite number of ways to do communications. We have very capable staff, and we can figure out what we think we need to be telling people. But doing this workshop with you, the board, will help us understand, first of all, what's most important to you and how you see Calleguas' role in communication. Second of all, it's going to help us understand our communication resource constraints and weigh the relative value of the efforts we could put towards different kinds of communications. The greatest value in doing an official strategic communications plan that gets adopted by the board is to codify the organization's strategy, right? To publish it, which is itself a kind of communication. The way the board speaks as an organization, right, is through its actions, resolutions, ordinances, votes, plans. What the strategic plan did for our partners in terms of giving institutional credence and backing to the things that staff was going around talking about and the kinds of work that we were starting to do with consultants, that's what a strategic communications plan is also going to accomplish. It's direction to staff, but it's also the board saying out loud in an official way what you want our messages to be and how loudly you want us to say them. So that's the general overview of what we're doing here. And again, we're going to lead, I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte. Who's going to lead you through exercise on audience types, who we're going to talk to. Take a break, come back. And you should be, yeah, it's working.
All working. All right. Thank you, Ian. Good afternoon, directors. That was a great foundation for what we're going to be doing here today. And we're going to get into some nitty-gritty right now with some audiences, talking about who they are, why they're important. We're going to identify 4 key types of audiences and go through a brainstorming session to identify groups that would fall within those types of audiences. And ultimately, our goal is to better understand who Calleguas should be communicating with and why. But first, let's start with the very basics, understanding the term audience. All right, so audiences are groups of people with varying backgrounds, functions, goals, and relevance to others. We all experience them on a daily basis, and we interact with each one differently, even though we may not realize it. So we are all doing this at all times. And some examples of day-to-day audiences include, of course, our family, our friends, our professional colleagues, authority figures. That can mean anything from law enforcement out in society in general, to your boss at work, to an education, it's teachers or professors and the like, and service providers, employees at the grocery store, workers at your favorite cafe, et cetera. So certainly not an exhaustive list, but just some examples to get us thinking. So communicating with audiences, we're obviously not going to do that in the same way with different types of groups. And we do this categorization again of how we communicate every day, all the time, mostly without thinking about it. So this is the same concept of at a strategic communications plan level. Putting different groups and categories, creating communication strategies to reach them, but we do it very intentionally. And the bottom line is that different audiences require different types and styles of communication. So for our purposes today in the strategic plan, Okay. We have a wide range of stakeholders and influencers can be an audience for our purposes. And or individuals, groups of people or entities that enable organizations like ours to achieve our communications goals. So knowing your audience is important because it promotes meaningful communication to that particular audience. It tailors messages appropriately. Again, you're not going to communicate one thing to a certain type of audience that you would in the same way to another. And it really fosters connection and understanding. We want that meaningful connection with our audience in a significant way. So we're going to get into our audience types. And there are a multitude of different types of audiences, obviously, but we had to narrow them down for our purposes. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but we've identified 4 different types. We're going to pinpoint which groups fit into the different categories. And heads up, some audiences may fit into more than one category. So I am going to walk you through the different types of audiences, provide examples of each, and then we'll have a discussion about who you think are the different audiences that fit into these different 4 categories in relation to Calleguas. Okay. So the first type of audience, cleverly called type 1, are those that we need information from, that we exchange data with, provide program or project feedback, or provide input or comments. And each of those characteristics is an or. Don't have to fit all 4 characteristics to be a type 1 audience. So let me give you a real world example for Calleguas. Metropolitan Water District would be an example of a type 1 audience for us because we exchange data with them, such as supply and demand projections. They need information from us. We need information from them. Department of Water Resources is another example. We provide them with data for our annual water supply and demand assessment. And we also need data from them for water supply projections. So with those examples in mind and the type of audience that we're talking about, directors, do you have some ideas on who are some additional audiences that might fall into this category? Just shout it out.
Customers.
Customers.
Which are retailers.
Sellers.
Customers is probably our ratepayers, so just that and purveyors.
Payers, great.
Wholesaler.
Wholesalers. Any other community type groups?
State water contractors.
Okay, water contractors,
County government agencies.
government agencies. We'd be a bit more specific. Or some government agencies that we
Ventura County.
interact with. Very good. BC,
AFCO.
So?
Cities, nonprofits,
great,
local
great.
nonprofit.
And VCCF. Kind of trailers on Director Waters.
Local
AWA.
businesses.
Businesses, AWA, President Quady, can you repeat your comment?
VCCF.
BCCF, thank you.
AWA and Aqua.
Aqua, excellent.
The CSDA.
Now, you-
SDA, special district.
CSDA, of course.
okay, well then you go CASA, you can go Southern California Water Commission, you can go to the California Sanitation District,
Great, CASA, SCWC.
Water Education Foundation, or
Mhm.
that's, that might be, that's informed by, I guess, PPIC. Much fault in the sorry,
And certainly
DWR and
Hmm.
the Delta Conveyance.
BCP.
Schools.
Yes.
We already said other regional districts, right?
The regional partners and things like that.
Regional partners, good.
Environmental groups.
Environmental groups.
We already say AWWA.
WWA, we got AWA. Do we have the 2 W?
Acronyms, but I don't think we had that one yet.
Very good.
Staff.
Staff. communicate with, need information from.
And staff uses APWA and ASCE.
Great. Sounds like a great list.
I guess, I don't know if you peel off separately the CUWCC.
UWCC. Consultants.
Data collaborator, CD, was it CDC?
How about, how about Met?
Yes,
Yours.
thank you, Director Avalo. Great, I think that covers quite a few. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, great contributions, everyone. We're going to move on to type 2. So type 2 audiences are decision makers. They weigh options, they provide support and or direction. They're decision makers at multiple levels in various capacities. So the Calleguas example, if you saw yourselves in that example, you were correct. Your board would be an example of a type 2 audience. You make decisions about the district. You discuss and weigh various alternatives, often with input from staff, and you provide direction for the district on various policies and projects. So with that in mind, the decision-making audience, who can we add as additional audiences that fall into that category?
Legislature,
Legislative.
state, federal.
Okay.
Are we renaming the ones that apply in
You
the?
can, certainly, if they apply, please do.
Metropolitan,
Politan
MWD.
and, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Surveyors.
Surveyors, yes, good. And legislators, Director McMillan, at all levels?
Yep.
Okay,
I know.
so let's put on city councils. County.
What about, directors over at, Parks and Rec? They're obviously a big customer of ours.
Very good. They're decision makers. Elected boards,
City council.
city councils.
Can we expand board to other boards we interact with and exchange water or credits and?
Great. Anybody else at the state or federal levels?
Regulators,
Environmental.
Regulators. Can you elaborate, Director McMillan?
those who do regulation.
Very good. State Water Board. PWR, yeah. Great. We got quite a few. All right.
Someone mentioned Biden earlier.
Yes. I don't think he's a decision maker.
Okay, type 3 audiences, pretty straightforward, one-way communication. They need to be informed by Calleguas. We send the communication, the audience receives it. An example of this, remember how I said different groups can be in different categories. Elected officials would also be in this category because we provide information sometimes not expecting any sort of reciprocal action. For example, we have provided the county supervisor in the district with our LV connection project, regular updates, ongoing updates about that project, just this is what's happening in your district. Just as a point of information. So this is one where elected officials could overlap into 2 different categories. So given that, who might be some other folks who would just need to be on the receiving end of Calleguas, of information from Calleguas?
Again, our purveyors.
The whole list, the public purveyors, other boards, Met. all the way up.
EWR. Water Quality Control Board.
Special districts.
Say legislators.
Media.
Yeah. Excellent. I think Director Avila
Yeah.
said schools for one earlier. Let's add schools to this one probably also. Yes, Director Avila, sorry.
And to add to that, just a quick thought. I think Las Virgenes already does a lot of this because somehow I get emails on news about LV all the time in my email. I didn't sign up for that, so I'm guessing they've already done something like this.
Yeah.
I would add workforce development.
Mhm.
So it's like potential employees or potential employees?
Yeah, getting the word out there that the positions are there, this career is here, because I think we struggle with getting people to see the path towards, water districts and all that, and I know that we're working on that, but, potential employees, I think, or education, I mean, classes, courses, training, stuff. I don't know if that's educators or students, but
Or both.
Both, yeah,
education.
educational, yeah. Arena.
Chambers of Commerce.
Yes.
To Director Avila's point earlier about the Las Virgenes emails, I think that's in general end users, right?
Staff.
The city council's already in there somewhere.
I don't think on that one, is it? Okay.
Director Quady, you mentioned staff. Yeah, I think all of our staff at Calleguas, it's important that they know, everything that's going on in the district. Like just a Calleguas newsletter or something.
That was Director Mill.
My voice must have dropped a little.
Oh, okay.
And conversely, board members as
Sorry.
well,
Sorry about that.
reciprocally.
That's okay.
Sorry, Director Robert, did you say members?
Yeah, board members and reciprocation to staff, we also get informed and we can make informed decisions.
Yes.
But also Aqua needs to know from us.
Mhm. And again, those pesky regulators.
Down.
MWD,
Yeah.
we informed them through our communication.
Street.
And our partners. That's a big category.
LV, they should get our newsletter.
But you can figure that is Megan's notebook needs to know what we're doing, right?
That's right.
Megan's notebook.
Okay, great. Okay. The last type of audience we'll be discussing, type 4, quite simply, they are our champions, people who support what we do in some way and advocate for Calleguas with other audiences. They advocate on our behalf. So an example that I picked for this one was Aqua. Aqua is the largest statewide coalition of public water agencies in the country. We've been members a long time. And according to Aqua, more than 470 public agency members are responsible for 90% of the water delivered in the state to cities, farms, and businesses. So it's a pretty powerful group. And they advocate for Calleguas on others as part of this collective in Sacramento and DC, taking positions on bills of interest, meeting with legislative offices and others to advance their/our viewpoint. So what might be some other examples of advocates?
MWD,
Audience.
MWD, CSWD.
Mhm.
SCWC.
What is that? What's this?
Southern California Water.
Oh, yeah.
Coalition.
Yeah.
And not necessarily Jagus, but as far as the regional DPR, Polar Reus, I would say CASA.
So, yes.
I would say partners that do have an advocacy role, like your chambers, collab.
Collab. Mhm.
Yeah, that's, the Chamber of Commerce is an important one. I had their board retreat on the 9th, and part of it was setting the agenda, I guess, strategy for the year. And actually part of their strategy and part of their focus is in regards to legislation is water. So that's, they're working on it. Let's help them out.
Water project contractors. Just put contractors and
Delta Conveyance.
Hopefully our purveyors.
Surveyors, hopefully, yes.
and our local legislators. We have to inform them what we need them to introduce legislation. Or support it. Staff.
Staff, always.
Sure if that was on our behalf or if that's just us. Yeah, it's.
They like to be included.
All mixed out.
Great. Anybody else?
All types of district council.
I feel like left out. There's been no mention of any attorneys in any categories.
No, we keep attorneys in the cards.
It should have been group 3 too.
Yeah,
Should be group 3 too.
It's good. All right. Great. Well, thank you, directors. I really appreciate all of your thoughtful contributions. Great job. I appreciate all of the great ideas. So now I will turn it back over to Ian.
Okay, and we can make it make a decision whether we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we can either keep going. Right now it's break time, or we can take a 5-minute break or 10-minute break. Plan was 10 minutes. Take the break. We're taking a break. But before you go to the break,
Keep going.
I want you to be thinking what we're gonna do when you come back is each one of the board members is gonna share their key message priority. If you had, the old elevator pitch, you had 90 seconds, 90 seconds long elevator ride. You had 90 seconds to talk to someone about Ventura County Water, Calleguas, about our future. What's the one thing you want to convey to people? When we come back from a 10-minute break, we're going to go around and talk about that. So if you don't have one now, make sure you have one in 10 minutes.
Okay, we will direct a break here.
Yeah, I should share this again. So. Right, we're back from the break. Okay, great. So we're just gonna go around the room, and those of you in the room, you have a sheet in front of you, maybe tucked into the strategic plan, or maybe it looks like some of you pulled it out. If you want to write down before you leave tonight, maybe before we get through this part of the exercise, is what your key messaging priority is, or if you have a couple, you can leave it behind and we'll gather it that way too, but we are obviously taking notes. Also, but we're going to start with Director Avila, if you're back from the break.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, could we start with you on your key messaging, your elevator pitch?
Yeah, I want our ratepayers to understand when they get their so Simi Valley in general. I'm gonna speak to my ratepayers. Every year, the city of Simi Valley sends out a notice. We are increasing your rates because Calleguas is increasing our rates. And that's exactly how it's worded. I want our message to be for our purveyors, for our ratepayers, public, other electeds, to be that here's what we're doing. Here's how Calleguas is growing. Here's how Calleguas is changing. Here's how we're diversifying. Here's the kind of projects we're looking into. And here is why we increase our rates, is because Met increases rates and the cost of infrastructure is always present, you know, and things like that, right? Basically going back to a strategic plan. Who are we as a district? What is our strategic plan? What are our goals for the district? And you know, elements of those things.
Great, thank you. Okay, yes, Jackie,
Let me go next.
please, thank you.
As I stuff a cookie in my mouth, I apologize. Calleguas supplements local water by providing imported water for 3/4 of the residents of Ventura County. We work with wholesale and retail water suppliers to provide water that is reliable, resilient, and affordable.
Great.
That's my speech. My speech, my speech, and my pitch.
Almost like you did this for a living. We don't even, no editing necessary, no notes. Director Waters.
I'd like the audience to know how fragile Calleguas's water system is for deliveries and how close we can be to running out of water, say a big earthquake or disaster. How fragile the California water distribution system is in general, and how Calleguas is working to promote the future and reliance of our water and make it as cheap and cost effective as possible.
Great. President Quay.
I thought we were just supposed to say one statement, so I ended up just thinking about it in terms of something that we said years ago and just with the general manager, and we cited it once more again, is that Calleguas seeks a diversity of solutions to water supply, and so we're looking at silver buckshot, not a silver bullet.
I like the short elevator ride. Silver buckshot, not silver bullet. Do it in one floor.
I'm gonna elaborate a little bit, but the short and sweet is our commitment to our pillars, resiliency, reliability, quality, and relative affordability. But our commitment to our future generation, we are reaping the benefits of our founders before us. We are that to our future generation. I think it's easy to see Calleguas as we take Met water and we pass it through and we supply it, but I don't think our audiences see our commitment to exploring the unexplored for those pillars that we strive to increase or maintain.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. Those are all great. And I think, you know, the question and what Megan's going to talk about is, and how do we talk about the audiences and how do we get these messages that are important to you and clearly like well articulated? How do we get those messages out to the audience? So that's Megan Schneider. Here you go. Take it away.
Okay, so we're diving into communication tools. So far, we've covered our target audiences, so that's who we're communicating to. Now we have our messages, so what we want to say to them. And now, like Ian mentioned, it's how do we deliver those messages to our target audiences efficiently, effectively, and leave a lasting impact. So this is going to be achieved through a combination of well-positioned communication tools. So delivering the message isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. By identifying the different tools, we can better understand which ones are best suited for different audiences and messages. So when I think of the tools we're using, I think of like a communication toolbox. And in that toolbox, we have the different tools, and those are going to consist of channels, messengers, and the different paces at which we communicate. So understanding that a blend of these tools is essential for effectively reaching our diverse audience groups. And what works for one message and audience may not be effective for another audience type. Okay, communication channels. So these are going to be the various mediums through which our messages are delivered to their intended recipients. We have visuals, so those are going to be things such as flyers, infographics. We have written communication, so those could be news releases. Spoken communication, those could be board meetings, presentations, facility tours, and then electronic communications, social media channels, emails. Selecting the most suitable channels ensures message resonance and reach. Okay, so for our first activity, we're gonna identify the current communication channels being utilized by Calleguas, as well as potential communication channels. This is just gonna be a big master list, so you could start naming them off, like previously mentioned, there's social media channels, flyers, board meetings. So just start shouting them out.
PR. Was it radio?
Radio.
Video.
Yeah.
So that was ACLU, which is
The thing that-
NPR for the California Coast. TV. Yeah.
Word of mouth.
Yep. Oh, social media.
Bills? Bills? We explain information on the bill. That's when they're thinking about it.
Well, you have the Calleguas website.
Yep.
A concern in.
Our purveyors,
What do you say?
He said purveyors.
Okay.
purveyors, their websites, their social media.
Them resharing our information, engaging with things we may be posting or sharing.
My concern in today's environment of, there's tons of information coming at you. And you either swipe it away if you don't like it or you watch it. Every business and everybody is trying to promote their information. We can put it out there, but if no one is receptive to watching it, it's an inefficient method. So it's interesting to look at all the channels we put out, but we got to look at if they're receiving it.
Yeah, and I think that's an important component of the strategic communication plan in general. Is, we're not just throwing that information out there and, hoping that something sticks, but hopefully by identifying the specific audience types as well as the specific messages, we're able to connect those to have a bigger impact. So hopefully that is something they will be engaging with. But you are right, there's, information coming at us at all different directions, all day long, so.
Now,
Professional staff engagement or activity. Thinking about present done by our various personnel.
educational outreach.
Yeah, I think educational outreach is a really good one, especially, within schools and getting those messages to the younger generations and, getting that word out there. Yeah.
Legislators.
We talked to the staff, just to expand a little bit on President Quade, the staff presentations, we talked to the staff level about there's different levels of those, right? There's some that we get invited to come to, Jennifer has gone to municipal advisory council meetings or community advisory council meetings and kind of given out. We also do, we talked about regulators earlier, we've testified in front of the State Water Resources Control Board and DWR. So it's a different kind of presentation. But also we do presentations to our purveyors and in this room and in other people's offices, all the way down to, one-on-one meetings, kind of staff to staff, different levels of the organization.
And one of the things that I kind of thought was that, like at CUWCC, that sometimes even our higher management people have a good opportunity to discuss what they're working on. Because you never know where the latest ideas are going to be coming from. And I actually think from that level, the rubber hit the road level to the management presentations, there's going to be all sorts of new ideas may be created. So it'd be kind of neat to shake that up a little bit.
Community events.
Yep.
We set up a stand and talk to people who are interested. A lot easier for someone to be receptive if you can't swipe a person.
Oh, Anything else? Okay. Okay, our next tool in our communication toolbox is going to be messengers. So that's who is delivering the message. This could be the district as a whole, could be the board, management, different departments, as well as individual staff members. So who the message originates from can play a significant role in how it's perceived and the impact it has. Some examples in the photos. At the top, of course, we have last board meeting where Metropolitan staff came. So the board interacted with Metropolitan staff as well as Las Virgenes staff and their board. Then to the right, the picture, that's our, that is going to be our emergency response coordinator, Daniel Cohen, and he's at an AWA event leading emergency response and talking about emergency management. And then on the bottom photo, we have our resources staff at a booth, a public event, providing information on rebates, as well as landscape transformation. And then our next tool is going to be PACE. So this is going to be the frequency and timing of message delivery. Selecting the right pace is crucial in maintaining audience engagement and ensuring message retention. And factors like urgency, relevance, and audience preferences should guide communication pace. We want to make sure we're not overwhelming an audience, but we also don't want to be under-informing them. So I think this also goes back to, just tailoring these messages because there's so much information out there. And we're on to our next activity. So for this activity, we're going to walk through each of the audience types that we've already identified. And you can reference the Post-it notes behind you or on the wall. And we're going to see who is the board best suited to address out of that audience type, what channels does or should the board utilize, and at what pace should communications be happening. So we'll go ahead and start with our with audience one type. So these are the audiences we need information from, exchange data with, provide program or project feedback. So as identified earlier, some of those are going to include MWD, DWR, State Water Board, VCCF, regional partners, environmental groups. So looking at those audience type ones, who is the board best suited to address?
Only need to pick one.
Oh, no. You could, yeah, any.
Do we get the dots or we get to go up and put the? Not this time, huh?
Too much
Yeah.
hazards that.
Okay. Well, I would definitely say MWD, DWR, state water contractors, the big guys. Who really, we have to work very intimately with to get water supply information from us and to them and from them as well. And our wholesalers. Not wholesalers, but that would be our purveyors.
Purveyors.
It would be my top.
And in terms of the board's role in interacting with those, how do you see, you know, if you or someone else from Calleguas' board was to interact with,
It would
Add-
be by going to their committees, by going to their workshops, by picking up the phone and calling them, you know, letters of communication through staff.
Events,
Mhm.
and retreats, that kind of thing, where you can really have time to talk. I'd say also other retailers and partners, you know, to align our efforts, all that.
Especially where those people are going to be panelists on workshops. Even though we're not dealing directly with a whole bunch of people to one agency, that one person who's sitting on that panel, we are able to engage and ask questions and have a little dialogue with.
I would say our subcommittees.
Yeah.
You know, where we engage with other groups to collaborate information and efforts and interests.
So we're talking about data exchanges, information exchanges?
Yep, so our type 1, exchange data with, provide program or project feedback.
Well, first of all, I want to say, if it's a board member, first of all, I think it depends on the board member. Because Jackie McMillan is far better to respond to the Metropolitan Water District than Scott Quady. So, you know, I just think there's differences between board members.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to our messengers. So the board could be as a whole, or they could be, you know, individual as well. Some are better positioned to deliver some messages as well as be, you know, in different, speaking to different audience types. So yeah, any comments you have on this, even if it's identifying the different board members and maybe what their best position to address is good as well.
And then in each board member, there's different levels of or decisions to be made about that communication. So I think there are times when it's better that, you know, manager make the communication, and there's probably times where it's better that other staff make the responses. So I see a diversity. I'm a little confused. Because there's a lot of ways to slice and dice all that.
yeah, and I think that's part of why we're having this conversation, right? Is so, you know, who, to go back to the Metropolitan and the committee meetings. The Director McMillan is down on the board and at the committee meetings. And other board members can attend those and participate to the extent that the rules kind of allow. Staff attends and doesn't participate.
But you do have staff to staff meetings such as our legislative
Absolutely,
working group.
right. And then so at the,
Manager meetings.
to your point, the different levels of the organization, you know, when we were talking about, you know, leading up to this is that, you know, we don't have facilities maintenance staff calling Adele Hutch Khalil. We also don't anticipate a board member calling Department of Drinking Water about our treatment processes. So I'd say to your point exactly, figuring out who does what is an important
Right,
part
and,
of what we're talking about.
So to go with that, you know, we set direction and we make decision as a board, not as individuals. So with that communication, we're communicating the board's direction, the district's direction that the board has set together. Not, you know, I would call anything other than that campaigning at that point. So as a board, the only things we should be communicating really is our direction that the board has set, things that the board is working on together with staff, projects that are ongoing, and a lot of those means of communications, I'd say, you know, we've assigned each other to those committees, to those seats, I'm AWA, Scott's, JPIA, Teal's got, VCSDA, and Jackie's got Met. So in a way, we've already pre-selected who our audiences are on the board.
Based on participation level of the board member.
Yeah, so
Actually, each board member is different.
yeah, and that's great information. And yeah, we could identify these within these specific audience types as well.
And I can cite other times where board members speak at different what should I say, either dedications or completion of projects. And so when we had Director Waters, we get the Cam Rosa, that was his area. And then I have done the City of Thousand Oaks Reservoir. So there are those kinds of things that throw a
Yeah.
variance to it.
Yeah, and those might be good within some of our different audience types as well, when we're looking for support.
So you're identifying a geographic
It could
element
be-
to this
it
that
could-
can sometimes be relevant.
Or it could even be that, just say, well, the president's supposed to do that. But usually it's geographic sensitive, yeah.
We're doing it great.
And at what pace is communications happening? And I think you kind of mentioned that in terms of the different meetings that are attended. So is there anything else that maybe you might want to add to pace that wasn't mentioned previously?
One thing that I'd like to say is having to do with like legislators, because that's always been kind of an interesting dance, is that legislators, on the one hand, they need to be informed about new things Calleguas is up to and what's happening in the area. But the other thing is that you don't go to a legislator just to say, hi, I'm this person and how you doing? There's usually should be an objective, like, okay, we've got AB 1890 that we're going after. We want to let you know that this is our state on this, whatever's state relevant, so.
I would interpret pace in two different ways. Frequency of communication, but also the quality of the information. If you go to someone every day with a lot of scattered information without a point or an objective, you're not going to communicate that objective. But if you condense it into something easily digestible, but also high quality, then someone can take that and say, okay, I got it. It's a quick little phrase, or it's your pointed necessity, or whatever it may be. You can't overload someone or someone's and expect them to accept all that information and digest it. You have to put it in a nice little digestible package for them.
There might be some, and jumping off of Director Roberts there is that I really love what the Delta Conveyance people have done with the public info materials toolkit. And also the VCREA, which mentioned later, that they have an annual summary of what happened in 2023. So sometimes there's that, but you can probably already do that on the website, but whatever cases, if that's available to people, that's helpful.
I think pace is also subjective to the audience.
Yeah.
If they're fellow water industry people, you might say, oh yeah, I love talking about this. Let's sit down but if it's just someone at a fair, you're like, no, one more thing, come back. It's
Yeah.
it has to be adaptable. It can't just be one message to everyone.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's not a one size fits all approach. So,
So, you know, last week I had a conversation with Jay Lewitt from Las Virgenes, and they have a way of communication that I think relates to this. They have a lobbyist in DC, and actually they were going to DC this week, and he mentioned to me that their lobbyist, figures out basically what their goals, what their accomplishments are, what they like to achieve as a district. And once in a while, they set up meetings for them in DC with the federal legislatures. And before the meeting, they get together and they go over the messaging, what they need to talk about with the legislators, and that's their message. And he was saying it's very it's served them well, and it's very effective in achieving their desired communications.
that's great. Thank you. That's it, yep. And so some of those are gonna overlap and already did into the different audience types, but we'll move on to audience type number 2. Those are the decision makers will weigh options and provide support. So as identified earlier, some of those include city council, state and federal legislature, board of supervisors, purveyors. So who in our audience type 2 might the board be best suited to address?
Depends on how complicated it is.
I think it depends on the board member.
Again,
I think I would be lost in the water if I were to step into McMillan's shoes.
right.
My head growing yet? Definitely it would be DWR, MWD.
And if you want to, when looking at those different audience types, if you want to write a different board member that maybe has, more involved. in that.
Well, there would be, to me, assignment by categories so that, you have, Director Robert, for County Special Districts, so he'd be the first to get a nod if there was something involved with that. Or like with, Director Avila, you would, definitely be in either the Fox Canyon or the, AWA. So there would be kind of a matching goes on. I was thinking, the board is a team mixed up of different individuals that can be addressed individually.
Usually if you're gonna deal with a mayor of a city, it'll be you dealing with your mayor. You might have another board member come along and it'd just be the two or the general manager. Same with supervisors and other board members.
I think decision makers would be really the board of those organizations. Because, staff provides input, but they are the ones who make the final decisions. So I'd say the board members of those organizations.
Think back to our meeting with Metropolitan. Addressing board to board, but also community to board, the presence of the other boards. That was such a good, from question to answer, such a quick process. I really appreciate the collaborative events, either boards like that or retreats where I think I've mentioned this before, but when you sit down with someone, when nobody has a rush to be somewhere, you can really get some conversation done.
And I will say the chair and the general manager were really stoked at the outcome. And they hope that continues with the other member agencies to go to. So it was great that we were the first and we came out with a bang. So.
Which is another way of saying, great job, you guys. Pull all that together. That was a great setup.
Thank you.
Are there any specific channels that you can think of when addressing this type of audience that comes to mind?
In person.
Yep.
Managers meeting.
phone calls, emails, letters.
We can't ignore the fact we are considering addressing decision makers. We also are decision makers and people affecting us. You have to be communicative, but you have to be receptive as well.
Which is the exchange of ideas thing.
And again, number one, I would say the legislators and the regulators. Because they are making decisions.
Yeah, and environmental groups.
I don't know that they really make decisions. They like-
They impact decisions.
They want money.
You already say city councils?
So President Quady, on city councils, how, if you could be specific about how for your area in Thousand Oaks, how would you think about interacting with the city council?
Well, I actually have, meeting before with the general manager and I was there in support because the speech was done by the general manager, but we can go as, in support of, or we can go as the speaker, but that can be pre-decided anyway.
In terms of decision-making that they would have, it would be on resolutions or anything impacting water, landscaping. That's where their power lies.
For this particular instance I'm talking about, it was what role Calleguas does and how it actually comes about with its rate and its role with the Metropolitan Water District.
Yeah, I really like Director Quady's comment on just being there in support of. I think that could be very powerful type of communication as well. Yeah.
To jump off that, yesterday I attended the Port Hueneme Water Agency meeting just to listen what their concerns are, what they're working on. And I try to go to the city council meetings as well, just because it concerns, issues and discussion tend to start there from the public, but just be there to listen, because for them to transfer issues and concerns to you takes time and effort and delay. If you're there, I afterwards talked to a few people and you understand their position, their environment better. I think just be there and listen also, not necessarily with an agenda, but be in your community.
But I would only caveat that with my experience, city councils are so spread out in what they cover that to me, the only time you'd really want to do that is if there was a somewhat related item, at least.
Exactly.
They have very long meetings and there's a lot of public public in touch type of stuff that they do. That's a whole lot different than what Calleguas does.
Sure.
And not saying that Calleguas should do that, but there are some things that we have done in the past in terms of, and they usually were met ideas. I think there used to be a solar boat thing.
Yeah, solar, yeah, we're trying to get that up and going again.
And that was, that's something that Calleguas would kind of be interested in just because of the solar side of it, energy and water nexus. But other than that, it's really tough for me to find those things.
Move on to the next one. Yeah. Okay, so now on to audience type 3. Those audience types need to be informed. As identified earlier, some of those include the end users, purveyors, employees, potential employees, special districts, media. So for those, are there any that stand out to you in who the board might be best suited to address or does address? And then you could also just play on maybe how they're addressed as well.
This is entities that we've listed up here that need to be informed.
Yep, type 3.
So we talked about legislators,
City council one,
city council,
would be the
think a bulk of the interest of all our activities are either to inform or be informed from all the groups we interact with. It seems a lot of these groups fit in all the categories because we interact in all those methods with those groups.
To be informed would be all the water suppliers, Aqua, MWD,
Yeah, and I think
Water Control Board.
and one way to kind of keep this effort, this from just being repetitive is to be specific about some of those. Like, what are some specific ways that
We are.
the board feels they can engage purveyors? Right? What are some specific ways that the board can engage end users? Or are there certain things that we mentioned in this third group that would be best left to staff? Or so helping, being specific can help it not just be, well, yeah, everyone we said before.
Right, yeah.
Well, one of the things that I take note of, which, since I've been around a little while, is that Aqua, they always have a bulletin board of things that water agencies are doing. I don't hardly ever see us in it. And, we just recently nominated, you've got a new general manager that wasn't in Aqua. There are places for those kinds of things. And I don't see it participating currently in that form yet.
We'll make the call tomorrow and get and send her photo.
It was in there.
Oh, it is. See, I didn't read it, did I?
What you use for February 7th, 2024.
I'll go back then. Say, this general managers, I never saw any change notes there.
That was to my point earlier. We hired the right staff.
She's in there. She's
I'm a-
CSTA used.
Very good.
I'm a big fan of personal interaction, like our general managers or our managers meeting. You talk to people and that sticks. It sticks more than an email that, oh, not right now,
No, I enjoy those program meetings because we get to really hear
it's my
their
favorite.
challenges, directly. And they start comparing notes and it's like, well, we're experiencing that too.
That memory stays with the face or the conversation. It's a more emotional memory than it is analytical or
There's a couple things I most like about the water managers meetings with board members attending is that, one, you get to hear what the purveyors, what the concerns are on their minds, and you may get some ideas, or you hear some ideas. The only worry I have is, and somebody mentioned it to me one time, is that you worry that board members might intimidate their candor. So I
haven't found that to be the case.
I
well,
haven't,
that's good.
Their candor is uninhibited.
I haven't found that to be the case
Specific.
either. Actually, I've had the opposite reaction. I've had several of our purveyors approach me at different locations, different places, and thank me for being so involved and attending those meetings. And they really appreciate that we're there, that we're listening.
And that's the reason.
And-
That's the reason.
as a new board member, for me, it allows me to put a face and a person to our different cogs. And understand their needs, their struggles, the sizes of their distribution, and because all the purveyors, they're all different, different topography, geology, demand.
Nice.
It's easy to see that on paper as a list, and it's a different thing to then know that person. So I like the personal connection, even the retreats, we meet people that have conversations about things that up in Northern California they've done, and that sticks.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next. Okay, and our last one, audience type 4. So advocate on our behalf. As identified earlier, some of those include elected officials, end users, nonprofits, community, foundations, Chamber of Commerce, staff. So of those different audience types, do any stand out to you on who the board might be best suited to address?
Definitely MWD, state water contractors, they advocate on our behalf. State water contractors, yeah.
So if I could maybe just press on a couple of these that are up here. So if we're collab and Aqua, what are, specific board roles in getting collab and Aqua to advocate on our behalf? How would the board members go about doing that?
Sit on their committees. Because they have a ledge committee at Aqua at state and federal level. And then CoLab has one committee called the Wheel Committee. And I try to attend those and have in the past. And when water comes up for legislation, I would, chime in, but we have those people now, so I'm off the hook. But it's still good to go and participate in those.
Committee participant.
Mhm. And they remember, that's the one thing I found out when I first started doing this territory about 30 years ago, is we really didn't have staff that was out there actively going to meetings. And I'm talking about Calleguas. And I think this is the first year that the past general manager really said, it is time for us to have a legislative representative and bring in some fresh faces. And so I've seen this organization now grow. And because I know everything was very tight, we're allowing ourselves to spend the money to get the expertise in so that we can achieve these goals. So it's been 30 years coming, but we're here.
I also have an inverse to this, in the sense that, whether it's board or Calleguas as a whole, in terms of communicating that there are some issues that our purveyors have. Maybe they're at the legislative level or the regulatory level, and they need backup.
Yeah.
Support. I would like to see Calleguas do a bit of that. In other words, if United Water has a regulatory hiccup that we as a region could probably stand for, it'd be kind of nice that Calleguas step in and say, okay, give us the info and go.
Great.
For you.
A lot of this info and really we'll call it the county news board, news bulletin. It sounds like really a lot of the stuff that AWA should be taking on.
I would add participation in legislative groups and committees like SDA, VCSDA. And they're so effective, and utilizing that resource, I think, is huge. It's partnering with like interested groups and partners to align our efforts, all address from different directions, focus into planned, executable strategies.
Yeah, so kind of following up on that and extending President Quady's comment a few minutes ago about participating in subcommittees. Our board two directors participate on actual boards, right? So representation on LAFCO. Director Avila is the alternate for the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency.
WA.
Yeah, so all the ancillary duties that you all have, some of those are influencing by participating on the legislative body, elected body itself.
Gee, that makes me feel bad. I didn't mention JPIA in any of these things.
It's not too.
Sorry, you're retiring off of it, so.
Sounds like the roots of a tree reaching out and interacting with other trees.
I didn't write that down,
Oh, I just think,
I was just thinking is staff the mycelium that's in between.
yeah, well, you have a plant in a pot and it doesn't really grow. You plant it and then it interacts with everything around it and it shares and
There is evidence that trees do.
yeah, they communicate and there's ancillary efforts and
Mike, you can write down bee trees.
be the tree.
Be the tree.
A picture.
All right, that sounds like we're
Yeah.
at the end of level 4, be the tree.
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you for everybody for participating in this activity. This is something we'll also be doing with internal staff as well in different departments and seeing how they best interact with the different target audiences and different messages they have as well. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to Ian, who will walk us through the next steps.
Before that goes, just make sure the JPA.
The JPIA up on these guys.
On there.
Right, great. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Maya, Jennifer, for making the post and notes happen. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take all this information, we can go back and we're gonna draft a strategic communication plan. We'll bring that back to the board and have another full workshop, but some of the conversation that we want to have to go from draft to final is going to include these key messaging priorities and what we're calling implementation strategies. So we'll kind of tighten up some of the conversation we had here today that will go from, audience type, communication channels, roles and responsibilities, pacing, kind of turn this conversation into something that feels a little more, kind of official and planny. But the third part that we're going to have a discussion with is when we take all this back and really appreciate all of the brainstorming, all the discussion today. And what we will do as staff to bring back for further consideration is kind of block out resource levels. So, if we just do everything that came up today to max level, that would cost X, Y, and Z in terms of money and resource intensity. So we'll bring back kind of a spectrum or kind of several levels of kind of engagement to talk about resource level requirements, because clearly that's a constraint. And we know it's very important to the board as a whole. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, future campaign discussions kind of will bring back on a one-off basis, a more specific targeted conversation about social media. Generally, the landscape has changed. Some of the other things that came up today. Before we close out, we could have feedback on this. Any last thoughts generally, anything that we missed that either you thinking coming in or came up during the course of the workshop that you want to make sure we get in, like the Aqua JPIA? No.
Just prioritize. I mean, if you're gonna come up with like a plan 1, plan 2, plan 3, you talked about costing it out. What would be the bundle based on whatever you're assigning to the communication effort?
Yeah.
Come up with three levels like we do with our legislation. How we just define how actively we're gonna be involved in 3. It'd be nice to hear what you see as priority number 1, priority number 2, and priority 3.
Okay, yeah, no, that's helpful.
And I think I don't know if this is when to say this stuff, but I had a few little bit of engagement tactics basically. And I thought about regional facilitation and assistance to projects around here without acquisitions. And as we do find opportunities there where we actually can help the region without, acquiring. We kind of talked about it, but I just make sure that we look like a regional supporter participating in impact legislation and support purveyor solutions, either single or multi-agency. Paying attention to city councils on water related actions, offer and require purveyor boards to reach their customers by utilizing any capabilities we have. And but the hope is they will outreach to schedule or to call. And I think that's all I have to say.
Great. Any last words, Director Avila?
No,
All right.
that's, I've said plenty.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That concludes the presentation.
What's the ETA coming back to us on this, you think?
I'm
You're
thinking. We've had some conversation about that. I mean, certainly this spring.
Okay.
Yesterday you'll be okay?
We proposed this.
We proposed it. There you go.
A week for post it. I
Nine.
mean, with that might be okay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
This week, that was one.
Okay, well, next step on the agenda is general manager's report.
First, I want to thank all of the staff that contributed to the communications workshop, both as an active participant today as well as behind the scenes. This was a lot of work went into what you saw today, and I think it was a very productive and important discussion. In terms of items I'd like to update the board on, I did want to let the board, I know that I did attend the Cal DSAL conference in Sacramento. I wouldn't say there was anything new and earth-shattering to report. It still seems that the path to getting seawater desal permitted is pretty much limited to very small facilities, 5 MGD, subsurface intakes, discharge commingled with wastewater effluent, a la the Doheny project in South Orange County and Monterey's project as well. There was an interesting update on the Carlsbad plant and some of the research they've done into the impacts of the brine discharge over time that are showing that those impacts are quite limited, which was interesting to see how they'll share that information more broadly. There was a discussion panel on some of the offshore technologies like the ocean well technology that I think a number of the board members saw at the AWA WaterWise last week. But an important issue to continue monitoring, but I think remains a very challenging permitting road, especially for anything larger than very, very small. I just also want to let the board know I did have a meeting on Friday and President Quiddy joined me to meet with Crestview because they had a board, their board president was present to talk about some of the challenges with that agreement, the well aid agreement. Those discussions are ongoing. The board will likely hear more about that in the near term on that. So those are the activities I thought worth mentioning.
Any questions for the general manager? Okay. Going to the board of director reports. Ancillary.
Oh, no, Dan.
Yes, water use and sales.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping ahead.
Water use and sales. Thanks, Dan. Sorry about
Okay. Can't skip all my good news, right?
that. I'm going to do that anyway because I have a big question for you.
It's not all good news. This is the report for the month of January. It rained quite a bit in January, so the acre feet did come quite a bit below what we had projected. We only sold almost 3,600 acre feet and we had budgeted close to the 4,500 acre feet. So we were quite a bit short for the month. Overall, which brings the total to 42,176,000 acre feet, which is of course less than what we budgeted. So we are falling behind. We're on pace to get closer to the 70,000 acre feet instead of the 73 we had budgeted for, but we still have 5 more months. January, February are usually the lowest months anyways. So this may or may not hurt us, depends how dry and warm it gets in the upcoming spring months. Looking at the sales graph, you can see the big gap between the blue and the red for the month of January. That's showing that we did not make our budget. And then there's the graph that shows all of the last 12 months. And, you know, you can see in March of last year, we also had another big gap because of that. A lot of rain that month too. We did get some rain this month, but it wasn't quite as significant as I think as January. We didn't have some of the big storms, at least maybe that's just maybe where I was. Actually, I think it was raining quite a bit out here. I missed that part. Looking at the Metropolitan reconciliation. So we had total sales of $4.5 million. We did actually use some water out of storage for the shutdowns in January. $415,000. We actually had a lot of water going in and then back out. So there was a lot of activity between Lake Bard and the well field, but it netted to the $415,000. We have a little reconciliation adjustment to get the total water purchase that's on the Met bill. And then we had new CRC and RTS numbers. It's January 1st, so we actually upgrade into the new numbers for Metropolitan. We had a little bit of the LRP funds we got back, $104,000, of which 2/3 of that go out to other agencies. We only third of that amount. We had a little bit in conservation costs, and then we had $45,000, almost $46,000 in turf replacement costs that we paid Metropolitan for the turf program, getting us to the total of $4.9 million. So we didn't sell much, but the Met bill is pretty small too, so that's only good thing about it. But we're not gonna have the revenues. Looking at the SMP discharge, we did have 74 acre feet of discharge. We still budgeted about 115 acre feet per month, so we are still falling short. This is still sort of a guessing game. I bring this up every month. Camarillo's still getting started. They're averaging more like 50 acre feet, and I think I had them probably around 80. So that's one reason we're kind of low, but this is their first year of really getting into operations, and we'll have to see where they settle on the regular discharge amount. Overall, for the year, we're at 438 acre feet, and I had estimated close to 744, so we are falling a little bit short on this one. And then the power sales, the one that we're actually doing good on, we actually had $21,000 come in for the month of December. We had a budget of $14,000. Overall, we're well ahead of where we should be for the year, so that's good news. We're way over budget already. To kind of break down the dollars for you, so water sales for the month of January was $6.2 million. $5 million that's going to go to Metropolitan. Year to date, we're at $69 million out of the $122 million budget, so we're about 56% of the budget. Typically, we're close to 61%. Recycled water sales continues to be down. We're about 54% of the normal. Based on the budget, and we're typically closer to 73. A lot of it has to do with the weather for the recycled water. If it's raining, they don't take any recycled water. We're selling very little at this point. The SMP's fees continue to be a little bit lower. We're at 34%, typically 56% at this point. And the power generation, the one point of good news, we're at $408,000 already for the year, and the total budget for the year was $300,000. So we're already over budget. And on the revenue side, that's a good thing. So cash and investments, you can see overall, we actually sent out an extra $3.8 million. 2.8 of that is related to the debt service payments we made. So that happens twice a year. This is the smaller one of the two. The other one happens in July. But overall, we still had some cash going out. This happens at this time of year a lot because we're paying bigger Met bills based on what the revenues are coming in, because we're off by a month. We have 2 months of We're back 2 months on the Met bills. So it always causes a little bit of use of cash during this time. But overall, we're doing good. And that's the end of my presentation, unless there are some additional questions.
Any questions for Dan? Well, I have a question, and it's probably just review, but I've been looking at these for a long time. I love the water use and sales system usage by region. And I was just wanted to confirm that, certainly Oxnard, Hueneme region is the direct read to the city of Oxnard. But when I look at Oak Park region, I don't know what numbers combine to make that number in the chart.
A lot of that goes to Oak Park. They're not even Oak Park anymore. They're
Well, it's a geographic kind of divvying up of the various turnouts. So are you looking to get for us to provide a list of which turnouts or retailers are that number is based on?
Well, that's the essence of it. Basically, I always looked at this and suspected there was some crossover to where it was geographically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always assumed that. So I just want to make sure that I'm correct in assuming that.
You are correct in assuming that. There is some crossover because like Thousand Oaks has 3 different.
And there's no simple way to show what.
Well, we have 96 turnouts, so I don't know that you want us to list them all here.
No, just from the table, using the table versus if it's not simple to take the numbers from the table and show that total, then I'm backing off.
We'd have to actually divvy up out of the billing system because it generates it all for us. We've kind of designated which ones go into which area, which turnouts. So we would have to pull out the list and get it to you.
Okay, I'm satisfied with the answer I got. Okay, thanks, Dan. And on to the council report.
Quick update tonight on some things you may be seeing in the news. As you recall, the district opted out of the DuPont and 3M PFAS settlements. Word about those settlements has appeared in Bloomberg recently. I just want to confirm, the DuPont opt-out was the first one that was processed. The notice administrator who's processing those opt-outs out of 1,000 found something on the order of 800 insufficient and reported that to the court. The court turned around and said, "You're not doing your job correctly. Try again. Look at all of the opt-outs and come back and give me a list of the specific entities that were deficient." They went through that. They finally produced a list of 88 entities, and I'm happy to report Calleguas was not on the list. So what's that?
Were we on the first one?
No, there was no list for the first one. It was, he just said 1,000 came in and I found 800 to be insufficient.
Oh, he didn't list.
He didn't delineate it. The court said, not good enough, and your job is not to knock everybody out of the box. Your job is to find them appropriate where possible. So we were not on the DuPont list, so we're okay so far. The 3M case is being processed. It's a larger settlement value and it's being processed much more slowly. There is no list generated yet. I'm in regular contact. MWD also opted out. So I'm in frequent contact with MWD's counsel, and we're always communicating about where the status of the 3M case is. But I will report that we received an email that the court ordered, the judge in the 3M case, for whatever reason, is being very active and trying to get everybody to jump into the settlement for whatever, I don't know why, being very judicially active. So he said, send out an email to everybody that opted out to say they have until March 1st to change their mind. We received that email. So somewhere, somehow, they received our opt-out in the case. So we're going to be fine on that one too. I'm just waiting for the list to be generated, and so is Metropolitan. And I'll give you an update when we have more information.
Great. We should be on top of that.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're to the board of directors reports. On Aqua Region 8, I went to Region 8 board meeting, review of survey results, and talked about some of the categories that people are interested in. And so we reviewed all that and we came up with two different decisions about Regional 8 issue forum and the event forum that's in August. August. The issue forum, of course, is the one at the conference. I guess unless people want to know more about that, I guess I can skip over that and say on to the Joint Powers Insurance Authority. No meetings, recent correspondence. And on to Association of Water Agencies, Ventura County.
Since the last board meeting, we had the WaterWise on the 15th. There was a presentation by Ocean Well on their desal project and prototype that they're working on with Las Virgenes. On the 20th, there was water issues. Met was discussing their pure water project, and it sounds like it's going pretty well. It's going to be very expensive, and they've had Oxnard out to do a tour of their demonstration plant, and that's it for AWA.
Very good. On to Fox Canyon.
No meeting, since the last board meeting. The next meeting is on the 28th.
Thank you. Metropolitan Water District Director.
Yes, I attended on February the 8th, Northern Caucus. And also on the same day, I attended and chaired the Bay Delta Ad Hoc Committee. The members discussed the 3 lawsuits related to the DCP's EIR, their impacts to advancing the project, and DWR's ability to issue a bond for the project. We also discussed continued advancement of open communications with the Bay Delta interested communities. And today I got a huge list of meetings that are coming up. It's like 10 to 12 with the Delta Council as well as the Delta supervisors. So we're moving very, very quickly to continue those open dialogues. And so I'll be very busy next month. And also on February 12th and the 13th, I attended the board and committee meetings. You've already seen this in your packet, in your Calleguas packet. They're all 3 I'll bring to your attention. One is that the board approved increasing the member agency administered program, which will allow member agencies to use up to 15% of their allocated funds for flexible, non-documented water savings category. And those that have less at $50,000 or less than $50,000 can use 100% of their allocated funds. We will be setting a public hearing, or has been set for March the 12th, to hear about our water rates and charges. So everyone's really interested in finding out what that's going to be. And then we authorized the general manager $50 million to secure 1-year water transfers and water exchanges. So those are the things that would be important for our agency. And then that completes my report.
Thank you. On to the LAFCO Commissioner.
We had a LAFCO meeting this morning. First order of business was to select a new chair, vice chair. I was nominated and selected to be the new vice chair. The new chair is Jenny Crosswhite from Santa Paula. Ventura River Water District got a couple of annexations approved to take Tico Water District areas that had water, but they were deemed not potable. They were high in nitrates, but Tico will remain active for irrigation, and Ventura River will serve potable. Tico will continue to use that water because they're a higher elevation on the basin. So by them continuing to use their water for irrigation, it pulls the nitrates away from the well that Ventura River uses. The next one was the Ventura Pure Advanced Water Purification Facility. They needed a couple places also annexed, and that was approved. Let's see, and I took a picture of the staff recommendation. The proposal involves several requested actions to allow the annexation of underdeveloped territory, the city of San Buenaventura, which would accommodate development of a facility known as the Advanced Water Purification Facility. And the last action item we had was the dissolution of Lake Sherwood Community Service District, as it has been inactive for over a year. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance. There was a meeting on the 15th. Attended. They had posted their 2023 year in review, and in their green business program, they show the amount of savings they have, both in terms of greenhouse gases, water, electricity, and solid waste diversions. And the presentation there was for the review of climate pollution reduction grants. Ventura County Special District Association representative.
No meeting since the last board meeting.
Okay. Let's go to the director's administrative code reimbursable meetings. Director McMillan, you want to start that?
Yes, on February the 9th, I attended CSDA's Legislation Committee. On February the 9th, I attended Calleguas' strategic planning meeting for MWD related issues. So I will need to correct that and send you a new copy. February the 14th, I attended CoLab's Wheel Committee. And Jody Switzer from the Farm Bureau discussed the new costly and excessive requirements to monitor and control water runoff. And I attended Ottawa's Waterwise breakfast where David Pedersen and Mark Gole talked about the pilot project and how submerged reverse osmosis technology. And also February 19th, I got dinged because I failed a physing test and I had to go back and retake it. So I'm learning to be very careful. February the 20th, I attended AWABC's Water Issue Committee, and MWD discussed Metropolitan's Pure Water for Southern California project. And tonight's meeting and outreach workshop.
Very good, thank you. Director Avila, you want to go next?
Yeah, on the 8th, I completed Calleguas online training for malvertising. And on the 9th, I attended the Simi Valley Chamber of Commerce board retreat to set the strategic plan for that board. And part of the priority for that board this year is going to be water. So that'll be a important addition there. And it goes in line with our communication plan a little bit there.
Okay, thank you. Director Waters. Okay. Director Roberts?
On the 15th, AWA Waterwise, on the 28th, or on the 20th, AWA Water Issues. And I have to say Metropolitan's Pure Water Project is fantastically impressive.
And expensive.
Cost, but also I think they said they're either going to be the second largest or the largest.
The largest, but they don't know if other things are going to come online.
Right.
Between now and when it goes to
Right.
scale.
But I mean, incredibly impressive, in my opinion, for future generations as well.
Mhm.
Laying the groundwork for that large of infrastructure. I mean, population keeps growing, so.
And it's actually in two phases. The first phase is 6 billion. The second phase, they're not, which would bring water to us on the west side. They're not putting a price tag to it because they're just, we'll wait and see.
That's not good.
Probably around 3 billion.
And then transport.
Good. So I had on the 9th, I was at the Thousand Oaks Rotary at CLU for the 32nd annual economic forecast. That was quite interesting, but there was a lot of speakers on AI, and it was a very fascinating presentation. But I guess the takeaways I mostly came from with that was one of the CEOs, he had a presentation about how well he could monitor demographics in a mall area. And at the same time, he came back with how you can get funny answers from AI. And he had 3 of them, and I only remembered one of them, but it was the one that I thought was funniest. And maybe you guys think it's funny, but it says, how many economists does it take to change a light bulb? And AI came back and said, none. Market would have already decided that. So, then, on the 15th, I attended the Ocean Well presentation at AWA, followed by the WCRA meeting. On the 16th, I attended the Aqua Region 8 meeting, followed by the meeting with Crestview. And see what's in, and on the 20th, I attended the water issues via Zoom. And tonight's board meeting.
I have a correction. On the 20th, I also attended the Port Hueneme Water Agency.
Okay, any upcoming meetings to be attended by board members? That's not on the blue. Line list.
I would like to attend tomorrow's purveyors meeting, but I may have a conflict. I have my malvertising training to complete. A meeting with the journal manager on the 26th. There are a couple Paulton meetings I would like to attend.
And I expect to attend the regulatory committee meetings on our meeting date. But I will miss the energy committee meeting because of our meeting here. Director McMillan?
Yeah, just too many to go through.
Okay, well, we can mention them next time.
Okay.
Good, good. Any future agenda items? Okay, on to information items, written communication, response to Camp 4W.
Yes, there was a brief piece of correspondence in the packet that Henry put together responding to a request from Metropolitan for comments on the proposed evaluative criteria associated with the climate adaptation master plan for water. We've taken a little bit of a different approach than some of the other member agencies, many of whom provided some very detailed comments about those criteria. Really kind of wanted to pull back and get the kind of bigger picture view and ask some questions about how the different pieces fit together in the bigger picture for planning and moving forward. It is anticipated that these comments will be considered ahead of the next Camp for Water Task Force meeting, which is on the 29th.
Thank you. Any closed session?
No.
Oh, nice.
Okay, then we will adjourn to the next meeting, March 6th. 6 p.m. Y'all?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.